Welcome to the Ag Inspo podcast, where we delve into the dynamic world of agriculture, uncovering the stories that inspire, empower, and drive change. Join hosts Rena Striegel and Ron Rabo as they explore the journeys of farmers, entrepreneurs, and leaders who are making a difference as they navigate the critical work of transitioning their operation to the next generation. From navigating family dynamics to developing the next generation of ag leaders, we'll bring you the insights and inspiration you need to thrive in today's ever-evolving agricultural landscape. So whether you're a seasoned industry veteran or just starting out, get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered as we learn from best practices and a few colossal failures on the Ag Inspo podcast.
Hi, everybody. I'm very excited today to be talking to George Crave. George and his family own a diversified operation in Wisconsin, and that probably doesn't take much for you to figure out that one of the things that they do is produce milk, and another thing that they produce is cheese. But we're going to be talking to George today about how he and his family made the decision to diversify and get into cheese production and some of the decisions that they had to make in order to get to where they are today now 20 years later. So with that, welcome to the Ag Inspo podcast, and let's welcome George.
All right.
So George, it is great to have you on Ag Inspo today. I am super excited to interview you and have everybody hear your story. So why don't we just start by, why don't you give us a little bit of history of the Crave Brothers operation and kind of bring us up to speed about where you're at today?
Sure. Well, I'm George Crave. I'm president of Crave Brothers Farmstead Cheese. I've been farming as a Crave brother for about 43 years. My dad milked 35 cows in Beloit, and he sold his cows in 1974 when I was about a sophomore in high school. And we worked for a few neighbors and worked around for a couple of years, and we were lucky to get started up again in 1978 on a small farm. 3 years later, 1980, we moved to Waterloo, our current address in Waterloo, which is just east of Madison. Started out here with our 80 cows, and today, 40 short years and thousands of long days, we are now farming about 3,000 acres. We milk 2,200 cows and have about 1,300, 1,400 head of young stock. About 20 years ago, after farming for 20 years, I said, kind of, not that milking cows is boring, but I pretty much had that figured out, and I just couldn't see doing it for another 20 years. And so did a lot of phone calls, did a lot of nosing around, and built our own on-farm cheese factory in 2001. February of 2002, we pumped our first milk over here, so we've been at it for 18 years now. Now we use about 150,000 pounds of milk a day, which is about 3 semi-loads of milk. Make fresh mozzarella, mascarpone, queso Oaxaca, and Wisconsin. That's what we do. My wife, Debbie, joined in 2001. She left her job in Madison, brought a lot of experience in marketing and contacts with her when she came home, and we sat at the kitchen table and developed our label and developed our story before we even poured dirt and had cement. So we built a cheese factory before I even had a market. So it was a leap of faith. People say that was a leap of faith, and I look back, you can call it a leap of faith or a leap of arrogance or a leap of stupidity, whatever you want to call it. But we took it, and here we are 18 years later.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about, I think most entrepreneurs can definitely understand the itch that comes when you're feeling like you've mastered something, when you have, kind of reached a pinnacle in one industry and want to spin off into another. But talk a little bit about how you determined that cheese was the way to go.
Well, I did a lot. We looked at genetics for the cow herd genetics, and maybe working with some of the artificial insemination companies. We had some conversations going there, and that never really developed, and really looked at really long term, was that a fly in the night type of an opportunity? And we already had a large family business with the 4 brothers that we are in business with, and really wanted to say we have enough partners already. We should be able to do something internally with our business. So made a lot of phone calls again, talked to a lot of the local grocery stores. Is it going to be milk? Is it yogurt? Is it organic? Is it whatever the market may be looking for. And after putting it all together and tearing it apart, putting it back together a few times, we decided to make cheese. Cheese we can sell nationally. We can sell cheese from Miami to Seattle. Milk from Miami to Seattle. Transportation, logistics, everything else is involved. I weighed all that in and decided to get in the cheese business.
So talk a little bit about, so you decide, you build, but you did not have any experience making cheese. So talk about the journey to actually be able to produce the product. You had the facilities, but no knowledge about how to actually produce cheese.
Right.
So talk about that a little bit.
Well, we knew that this was a big step forward professionally. You know, we all know what farmering means. We know that you can kind of figure it out, or you can, you know, bale or twine it together. And we knew this was not going to be that type of an operation. So we knew we had to really up our game professionally and really invest in professional people. So we went out and hired a cheesemaker right off the bat before we were even had the cement was dry, and brought Kurt Primo in, had his science degree as a farm boy from just up the road here. And he was kind of in the middle of moving or staying locally. And we were really fortunate and blessed to have Kurt come and work for us. And he's still with us 18 years later. And he brought that, well, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're, and another real asset we have in Wisconsin is we have Center for Dairy Research right here in Madison, which they're just a phone call away. We can drive in, we can talk about it. I can take them cheese, or they can come out here and we'll do some technicalities, because cheese making is fairly technical.
Mm-hmm.
And not only making it, but then also packaging it and marketing it. We can always make something. We can make bacon, we can make pigs, we can make a T-bone steak, but how are we going to market it, package it, and distribute it? That's the real next step in the business.
So then talk a little bit about that learning curve, you know, how you took the product to market. Did you start with the local grocery stores, or did you actually try to find, you know, a different avenue to take the cheese into the marketplace?
Well, through Debbie's experience, we met a few cheese distributors and marketers and partnered with them before we even thought about building the cheese factory. And they suggested the type of cheese to make, and we looked at it and researched it. We made the cheese, they sold it. And we just like a lot of businesses, you kind of really start out crawling and going slow and making a few mistakes. And a few years after going along, we finally got some momentum and grew 20%, and then another 20%, and pretty soon had some nice momentum going. And as a matter of fact, only just 3 years after we opened in 2005, we added on. Then again in 2007, we added on to the building again. And now just last year, 2017, we put another large addition on the cheese factory. So today we have 45 employees. They say we make about 18,000 pounds of cheese a day. It all goes in 8-ounce and 12-ounce packages. So you do the math, and pretty soon we're making 30,000 different packages of cheese a day that do get distributed nationally.
That's amazing. So, you know, so you've obviously figured out how to get the product out there, but along the way, you've also become extremely excellent at what you do. So talk a little bit about, as you listened carefully to customers, you actually created a internationally recognized product. So talk a little bit about the journey of not only, finding a great use for the milk, but you've also become incredibly excellent in the marketplace due to listening to customers. Talk a little bit about the relationship you have to them.
Well, it's important to have a relationship with the customers and distributors. Really, we sell to distributors. The end customers, the person that's putting in their grocery cart, or the chef that's putting it on a plate in a restaurant. That's the ultimate customer and the consumer. But really, to get those to those customers, it's all through distribution. And we're really selling a lot of our product through distributors that they buy it from us, and their responsibility is taking to their sales force in Atlanta, Georgia, or Portland, Oregon. They take it out, they start jobbing it or selling it to the restaurants and the distributors or the grocery stores in their area. So we've been fortunate that we do live in Wisconsin again, where this is a big business in Wisconsin, having different cheese salespeople and distributors. So we've been able to partner with 3 or 4 of those distributors that have been very good for us to get all the different. One customer might just take the fresh mozzarella, another customer just handles the cheese curds, and another distributor just handles the queso Oaxaca. So we have those different relationships with people. And there again, then we're the manufacturer. For me, I always looked at our business should be in manufacturing and not just be a little hobby or a little kitchen table type of cheese factory. When we decided to do this, it was going to be real value to the overall family business. That was our goal from the beginning, and it still is.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about that, because along the way you've created a very compelling story around your family and around your farming business in, not only just that, you take excellent care of your cattle, but then you've also done some really innovative things in terms of, producing energy with the cattle. So talk just a little bit, because it's not just that you created another way to handle the milk product, but you've also used other products that come off the farm to create value.
Right. Well, we do farm 3,000 acres to grow just primarily the feed, and it's really only about half the feed we need to feed a cow. It takes about 3 acres worth of feed to feed a cow and a replacement calf and heifer. So that's really 6,000 to 7,000 acres of feed that we will use here in a course of a year, that we'll bring in from hay from Nebraska, brewer's grain from Milwaukee, or malt sprouts from Minneapolis. So we'll bring in all those different products and blend up our ration, feed the cows. And I tell people when we feed a cow, it's for the 5 M's. So we feed for maintenance, meat, milk, manure, and we take it a step further and make methane out of it. We also have a methane digester on the farm where all the waste from the farm and the cheese factory go into, and a large generator that's powered off of the methane, not gasoline or diesel, that generates enough electricity to power the farm, cheese factory, and about 300 homes in our community. So that's not, I don't like to use the term story. That's what we do. That's our action item every day. Mm-hmm. Walt Disney had stories with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Dumbo and Bambi. Those are stories. This is our action every day that we do. So we produce electricity. We produce about 630 kilowatts per hour, which is enough to run a home for an entire month. So you do the math, and we generate enough electricity to power 700 homes. But a lot of the power goes to the farm and the cheese factory.
That's amazing. So as a result of that, I think you've got a green certification, I believe, for your operation.
Right. I tell people we've been green before green was groovy. Most people don't know what groovy is anymore. Really cool if you don't know that. But Debbie developed a logo with a cow with a little tail that she's swishing that has a green leaf on the end of her tail. Her switch is a green leaf. So it says produced with renewable energy. And it's just becoming more and more important that we tell our story of what we do out here, our action items that we do every day, from the crops to the cows, cheese to the consumer. So that's what we talk about when you come in to Crave Brothers, or when we're out talking about our business. It's always about, we'll talk about our crops to the cows, cheese to the consumer. At the end of the year, it all comes off the fields, and it's leftovers returned back to the fields to grow next year's crops. Farmers are the original recyclers.
Yeah, that's amazing. Talk a little bit just around, I think there's a lot of people that are looking for innovative ways to, create value out of what they're already doing. So you've created value out of, taking your milk and pumping it over to the cheese factory and turning it into product. Talk a little bit about the early days of those decisions. Like, what did it take in terms of, creative thinking and brainstorming and just sort of even just like being brave? I mean, you're farming with 4 siblings, it's a group of 4 of you, and now you've got the next generation coming in. What does it take in terms of, just sort of your critical thinking to be able to do something different than what you've already done? Because you were already farming and producing milk for many years before you decided to innovate and produce cheese. Right. So talk a little bit about those early days and the mindset around that.
Yeah. Well, the early days was always about just growing a better herd. I'm asked many times, is this your goal to develop the type of business we have? And I said, no, early on, my goal was to have 100 really good cows, because I really love cows. And looking around, I guess I'm successful. I do have 100 really good cows now. So, but I got bored. I guess boredom, you would say, Rena, is that most entrepreneurs do get bored and they're looking for the next thing. And if this is good, then there's always a better way. I'm always about there's ways to do things, but there's usually the best way. I'm always looking for the best way to do things. And we did that with the cows and the crops, and now with the cheese. And it just wasn't making cheese, but it had to be a high value cheese, because just cheddar and mozzarella is making cheese, but then there still guarantee financial rewards. So we're making cheese that other people don't make much of, and we are the size, scale the business now to the size where we can service many of the major customers in the country without putting us under or getting pulled around. I learned early on that you don't want to go whale fishing in a rowboat, which means if you hook up a whale, they're going to pull you all over the place and you're no longer in charge. And one thing in running a business is you always want to be in charge of your business. Your employees won't appreciate it. Your banker certainly doesn't appreciate it. And, if you can't sleep at night, then you don't appreciate it either. So you always want to have the size to control your business.
Yeah. So it's very obvious that you're very visionary. You're a visionary thinker. You look out in advance of something and try to anticipate where the market might take you. Do you feel like you as a team, as a leadership team at that time, were all on the same page about that? Or did you have to work through some resistance in order to get kind of everybody on board for, really entering into a fairly large unknown at that time?
Yeah, sure. It really was a large unknown, and almost to the point of being naive about how easy it was going to be. We see this in a lot of agriculture because we can grow hay or corn. We think we can raise livestock, or we can start a dairy farm. And just because we have milk, we think we can add a value to the milk and bottle it or make yogurt or make cheese. And it's an entirely different step along the way of the entire food chain. And so I was naive, but I did a lot of research, and I think I made initially most of the right decisions by not getting into bottled milk and not making ice cream and things like that. Patience is very important when you start out also. Have a game plan, have finances in line that the first year or two, the cash flow is only one way, and it's always the wrong way. And so you want to make sure that there's enough financial backing, either through the business and the bank, that can carry this side of the road.
Mm-hmm. What would you say has been your biggest challenge? You now have, many years of success under your belt, but where do you feel were your major points of challenge along this journey?
I think early on was really, really being willing to ask enough questions. Not probably my biggest fault was I had too much confidence and a little naive to not call a timeout and say, hold it, we have to have a meeting here. We have to bring in a few experts and talk things over sooner than later, and I probably waited too long on a few of those decisions looking back. I try not to look back too much, but realistically, lessons learned. And if I have a problem, I'll get on the phone and call someone or have a meeting, and people from the office and people from the back room and my production guys or family members, and say, hey, we're having an issue. Mm-hmm. Brothers a lot, they're really good at construction. So now, instead of me taking on construction projects and remodeling at the cheese factory, I turn that over to Brother Tom, and he makes the phone calls and heads that up. So I'm no longer trying to do it all over here, which was probably one of my mistakes early on, trying to be too independent.
Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about, you mentioned that you wish you would have maybe called people in sooner to help. When you're starting a new venture inside of an operation that's already up and functioning, what do you believe are kind of the key professionals that you need to have at the table to help you launch a new idea or a new venture successfully?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think if you're going to take a product to the market, knowing what the market is, and look at, do some traveling, talk to people at trade shows, get out, go to, your best education is going to a grocery store. You always think you have a good idea, and you go to a grocery store, and there's a lot of good ideas in grocery stores or in supermarkets, and it's all happening. So someone's out there behind all those good ideas and those great products. So if you have an idea that you think can get some wheels under it and go to the market, make sure that what the competition is, what the price point is, and then work it back from there. Packaging, talk to packaging people, really what it costs, because packaging is a very large expense when it breaks down on a per pound of cheese or a per 100 weight of milk. Take that all the way right back to local regulations. And it takes a lot of work. We spent about 2 years making phone calls and going down the road and taking a left in the, you get to a fork in the road and you decide which one to take, and you take that until the next fork in the road. And so we did that, and I had notepad after notepad of who to call and phone numbers. And I did that for about 6 months, and very covertly going to the farm office and making some calls, 10 or 20 years ago. And finally, one of my brothers says, "George, what are you doing in there?" And I'm like, "Well, calling around. I'm trying to see about adding value to our milk, getting off the commodity treadmill, taking more control over our product." I'm like, "Oh, really?" And so we better have a meeting about this. So we had a meeting and told them what I was thinking about. And okay, well, they gave me permission to go ahead and keep making a few more phone calls and then circle up again in a month, and told them where I was, and they thought it sounded ability. So I asked for permission to, I'll do the morning milking and do the feeding and breed a few cows, and then I'm going to go to the phone in the afternoon, Madison or Milwaukee, to have a meeting, and that's what I'm going to do. And they gave me permission to do that, and then brought Debbie home to carry it on, and here we are today.
Yeah. So, talk a little bit too about, how do you keep the idea fresh? So we already know you get bored, and then you want to go do something new. So now you've been doing this for quite a few years. So how have you kept yourself really sharp in this industry? Because it sounds like you started out making a certain type of cheese. It appears that you're still making that type of cheese. So what has kept this business exciting and fresh and new for you?
Yeah, I think for me, it's always getting that one new customer. It's that other 5% growth, or that's going to give us 10% growth, that incremental growth that we can handle now. It's like going fishing. You're going to catch a fish, but it's always exciting. That's why people go fishing. They're not going fishing to watch the bobber go up and down. They want to hook something. And I like throwing the line out there and seeing what I can get. I find that exciting right now. Been doing this for 20 years. I told you 1978. So you can do the math. I'm 62 years old, and I know I'm not going to be here forever. And for me now, it's exciting to what I've learned, and communication that I've learned is to bring up the next generational leaders. That's in my family of generational leaders, or people that are in the building. Mm-hmm. Some man I hired 4 years ago, and he has the potential, and I sit down with him and I tell him, you have a big future here. What we're going to do, I'm going to help you be a better leader. We're going to have meetings. I'll show you how we talk to people, how we conversate. It's not about getting mad. It's not about being wrong. It's about making the cheese and making sure he's making good cheese. I like to tell people, it's not about you. It's not about me. It's about the cheese. Whenever we talk, it's going to be about the cheese and how to make a good, safe, consistent product for the customer that they're expecting. We're not a big operation. I tell people always sell is quality here. That's our emphasis.
Yeah. So you now have gone from one cheesemaker to you now have, how many cheesemakers on staff do you have now?
Well, licensed cheesemaker, there's 4 of us.
4.
Yes, there's 4 of us, and I have a couple more people that I'm trying to get their license. In Wisconsin, you have to have a license to make cheese. You can be a floor operator and a packaging person, but there always has to be a licensed cheesemaker on a facility when we're making cheese, and a pasteurizer operator. Our niece Beth works with us in customer service and quality now, and we're excited to have her, develop her professionalism over the next couple of years, and have a big part in the future here as Debbie and I pull back a little bit. We step back once in a while, and I pressure test our systems here. When we come back from a little long weekend, if no one's not waiting at the door for us and there aren't notes that come in, then I figure that they must have figured it out, which is always good. That's fine. Can we get away and everything's going good? And I feel confident we're at that point right now.
Yeah. Because I think that's one thing that a lot of owners don't always think about is we're going to get into something because it's exciting and fun, but then they don't really create that sustainability plan into how do we carry that forward when maybe we want to back away from it a little bit.
Right.
How have you kept a pulse on what the market demands? I know you are, working with distributors that keep you educated and bring messaging from the ultimate end user. But what are some other things that you do in terms of, just keeping up with what's going on with packaging and regulations and maybe new trendy things that are happening around cheese and food?
Right. Well, there's a lot of publications, just like there is in agriculture or any business. It's surprising or shocking how many publications there are, from deli business to retail watch to manufacturing type of magazines. So you page through all those. You don't read every article, but you try to find it. Debbie's really good at paging through them, and I page through them. And I look at big trends, kind of a big trend person, because you can get really off track if you pay attention to too many of the small things. The small trends can be very distracting, and I don't think we can waste our time in that, or our energy in a lot of the small little tiny trends. But if a continuous trend, a lot of small trends end up to be a bigger trend. But for us, it's getting to the food shows. We'll go to San Francisco, New York, Denver, Florida, Atlanta a couple times a year. And whenever we travel, even if it's on vacation, consider it a food show, we crash grocery stores. So we go in, we check out the pizza aisle, we check out the cheese aisle, we check out the anything else that we want to see that's just general advertising, marketing, locations of the stores, what people are looking for when they stop and pick up a label, what are they reading, what are they looking for. And this is an idea really on the consumer also, because living out here in Waterloo, Wisconsin, we have a Piggly Wiggly, and it's a nice little store, but our consumers are on the East and West Coast. The population is, and those are the trends, and that large population is this we're going to make and what they're going to consume.
So when you do those grocery store stuff, how often do you see something that you and Debbie go, oh my gosh, we've got to go back and we've got to do that? Does it happen often, or is it more of just a double check on what you're getting from your distributors to make sure that you are getting factual information and you're just kind of doing a double check?
Well, it gives us, if it's something we think we should be doing, we'll come back and we make phone calls and we ask questions and we say, we saw this label, we saw this color, or it evaluates what we're doing as far as color and labeling and packaging. Auto dealers roll out new models every couple of years, not because their old models were bad. It's just that new is exciting. And so looking for something new and exciting. So we're always checking that out. And if it's a matter of just changing the label or the size, or going from a 10 ounce to a 12 ounce or a 12 ounce to an 8 ounce, maybe that's going to be the trend we have to do. And one thing we learned is that you're going to be asked to do a lot of things by your distributors. You never have the right size. You might not ever have the right box. And so you're constantly changing and evaluating. And it's okay to say no for a while, but eventually if you want to grow your business, you have to say yes and go along and through distribution and marketing. So we did that early on and continue to do that now. And that's where Beth, our niece, sits in customer service. She's labels and changing boxes and taking all those customers. We have about 15, 20 different customers that we make cheese for every week. Different people that we are answering to.
Yeah. How has your mindset changed over time from when you were beginning and maybe feeling like you had to give a lot more in order to create some momentum with clients in comparison to how you approach them now? Has it changed, or have you found that you've gotten able to sort of control your own destiny a little bit better now that you're more established?
Well, yeah, I think I sleep a lot better now, and I hardly, when I leave the building, I hardly even think about work anymore, because things are working well. That doesn't mean I'm taking it for granted, but I try to work between when I'm here and when I leave and make sure everything's covered. The customers we have, I believe they've been long-term customers, which always is reassuring to have them. Don't take it for granted, but you always have to check back in. And we ask for annual meetings with people just to review, get a little bit of face time with them to let them know that we appreciate their business. Is there anything we can do better? Looks like we had a good time last year. We were up 10%. Thank you very much. What does next year look like? And have that open communications. And that's very important. Just for peace of mind, because I have a board of directors, and they're all my brothers and my nephew and our son, and equally responsible for all the employees we have. We have almost 90 employees between the farm and the cheese factory, which, Rena, you talk about where we started in 1978. It was just, I wanted 100 good cows, and that took about 2 or 3 people. Now what we have. So being responsible to them also. Our employees, our school system, our tax base, and everything else like that. So you step back and you go, okay, this is serious, and we're going to just make sure that I'll go out on the floor a couple hours a day and work with people and walk through the building 3-4 times a day and see everyone that works here. I know their name. I think that's important.
Yeah.
And so that's how I continue the momentum and positive and gives me energy.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the dynamics of your family, because, I think some people might think, well, if we're going to go into this other venture, I'm definitely not going to work shoulder to shoulder with my spouse. And you made a conscientious decision to pull Debbie back and say, come work with us. So talk a little bit about how you work out the boundaries of that, how you keep some autonomy, and, probably more importantly, how do you handle it when you don't agree with each other?
Well, we just live down the road, so one of us can go home. But we understand each other, that she's sales and marketing. She takes care of that part of it, and administration, which she enjoys sales and marketing much more than administration. She's looking at pulling back from that somewhat and turning that over to some new people. But and I do the cheese making and work with employees a lot. She's human resources, but really for me, the human resources is going out and talking to someone. You're not coming on time. We have to look at your vacation slips, etc. And I do that. And then also the big picture, capital expenses, how to make the cheese. And one thing from being a farmer that our family's really good at is saying what next and how are we going to do it. The next idea. My dad was always like, yeah, that works, but we can do better. Story that my dad always tried to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, and when you get all done, it's like, it's a sow's ear purse, Dad, but it's we have it. So that's where we still are today, is always looking for something, the next way to do it. Working with the family as the building grows, as the business grows, we're able to expand and get off. You take care of the crops, you take care of the machinery, I'll run the cows. Work with Jimmy, the hired man, or the guy that's been with us forever. Now Patrick, our son, is the herd superintendent, and Jordan and Andy are taking over the crops and maintenance, and I'm still at the cheese factory. So as you get bigger, you can go out, and there has to be trust that the people are going to be doing their job in a family business, even with employees. You have to have a level of training and trust, I think, is really the key to harmony.
Mm-hmm. Talk about how you facilitate communication with that many family members and that many employees. Just talk about how do you keep communication flowing and make sure that everybody's learning and getting the messaging that they need. Just talk a little bit about how your family handles that.
Well, it's much easier I call it that side of the road, because that's where the farm is. And so I was fairly disconnected, make some phone calls, or see a tractor pull out the driveway, and I'd make a phone call. Hey, what are they doing? Where are they going? Now we have weekly meetings. We tried to have weekly meetings, but like anyone else, you get busy. This person's gone, that person's gone. So it kind of blew up your schedule. Now we have our L10 meetings, which are they're dyed in the wool. Every Tuesday at 1:00 we have L10 meetings, and go through the prescription of how to handle the meetings. And it's very good, because we still notice after doing these for a year that someone will say, hey, how much cheese are we making next week? We'll get to that. And so it gives you a better format for having meetings. Did not grow up in a family where you had meetings. You had meetings as you're going out the driveway or coming into the barn, or while you were milking, and usually across the driveway, as how a lot of farmers have their meetings, or tell people what to do or ask for help. And we're much too big a group to do that type, and too large of opportunity for miscommunication. So it has to be very deliberate, and sit down and get a cup of coffee if you want one. It's after lunch, and just chill out for an hour or two. And if you stick to a very strong formula, then the meetings don't take for long. what's coming. There's no surprises. There's no ambushing, if you would say. So and that's always good.
Yeah. So, just give some advice to our listeners, because I know right now, innovation is a buzzword, right? Everybody's talking about innovate, change, grow, diversify, get out of the commodity wheel. There's a lot of talk in agriculture about, trying to figure out the new way to bring product to market. So in your opinion, give our listeners just kind of your down and dirty top tips. If somebody's sitting there super frustrated and saying, we've got to do something, and maybe it's because they're not really happy with how things are going, but maybe they're also wanting to bring more family members into the farming operation, and they know they need to create more value to be able to support that. So give maybe your top tips about how someone should approach that if they're sitting there, right now today with no real idea of what to do. They just know they need to or want to do something.
Yeah, that's a good question, because early on, even when we started building the barn, when we built our first freestall barn in '89, it was very, very cutting edge type of barn. We had people coming in from all over the Midwest, bringing their kids and looking at the barn and wondering if cows would lay down in freestalls or they'd eat a total mixed ration. And like, yeah, don't worry about that. They'll, you build a barn this way, use this design. But I turned back on them and said, who's going to own this in 10 years? The 25-year-old son would come in and the 45-year-old father. I said, who's going to own this in 10 years? Who's going to manage it? That would always stop them, because that's talking about more than just how big a combine do we need? How big a mixer do we need? Those are easy. Those are the easy answers. What are you going to make and who's going to manage it? Where are you going to sell it? Are always the tough ones. And I think those are tough answers out there, and difficult answers to come up with out there in rural America right now. And I feel that's why people are frustrated. Most of us belong to co-ops, a co-op or an end user co-op, or maybe both. I think we need to demand more out of our co-ops to capture more of the consumer dollar. That sounds easy, but I feel that that's really the downfall of rural America, is we just not getting enough of the consumer dollar return to our local townships and our local mailboxes. I would say that if you're looking at trying to add value, what is it you have? If you have pigs, or if you have steers or dairy cattle, not easy to add value to that, because it takes processing, it takes marketing, direct marketing a couple of steers. Okay, we can do that. Most people do that, but is it going to be enough to bring the next generation in? And I think that's the challenge. I would think that those conversations have to start very early on, before the son goes off to college and wants to go back to the farm. There has to be some discussions about that. And I know that we did that in our family also. My dad sold out in '74, as I said earlier, but when we wanted to start farming again, he kind of took us and said, I don't recommend it, guys. It's I know you guys like it, but it's not easy. And we said, yeah, but we think we can do better. And talk to your neighbors, go to neighbors and look for opportunities to work with them and partner and reduce machinery costs. Look at becoming more efficient that way. I think for us, it's always about margin, managing your margin, not necessarily managing the market. The market's only going to give you so much, and it's about managing your margin. And that's about all I can really say. Yeah. Everyone's in such a different situation, and in your location too.
Yeah.
A small town or on a highway, you have more opportunities than you were out in the middle of a big prairie somewhere. That's for sure.
Yeah, talk about how agritourism plays into your model, because I know you have people coming down the road all the time, and talk about how you've incorporated, people's curiosity for what you're doing into your farming business.
Yeah. Well, early on, right from the beginning, just some of the touring that we did, we talked to some cheese factories that had stores and offered tours. Some, it was a big part of their business because they could capture the retail market right out of their cheese vat. And other ones said they never had what the customer wanted. You have cheese, and you have to make grilled cheese sandwiches, and you have to have T-shirts, and you have to have stupid cheese hats, and then you have to also man it when you have a store or cheese or a ag tourism. Someone has to be there and bring value. So we do not have a store, and we do not have a ag tourism business per se. We have enough going on without that. Not to say we won't in the future. If a family member wants to come back and finds that that's part of our marketing arm and it brings value, always has to bring value, just not exercise. You want to exercise, join the health club. But if it brings value, or one or two people can be employed off of that other entity and that other enterprise, I think it has some real validity. I really do. If people are only willing to pay so much for milk and so much for pork chop, then sell them something else. Sell them the sizzle.
Mm-hmm. So you're just always evaluating where and what people might want or need or be willing to buy or travel to you to get it. And you're just constantly evaluating that and being open to new things.
I think so. I think if I have a strength, it is that I hear what people say, and I constantly filtering that and putting it in different boxes. And I've maybe have the skill or the gift to be able to recall that and line it all up and have it make sense and use it maybe 20 years later. So-and-so said that. I remember that. And then you go back and evaluate. Instead, I'm just not for what we have, it sounds like I'm a hip shooter, but I'm very calculated.
Yeah.
I might shoot from the hip, but I aim really good down there.
So, do you have any short range plans for expanding or doing anything bigger than what you're doing right now? Or is where you're at a kind of a sweet spot? Have you hit a good pace?
Well, our expansion 2017, 2018, a lot of that was just to give us more room to expand internally inside the building. I learned that you building the walls isn't expensive, and the ends of a building are expensive. Putting the equipment in the building is where the real expense is. So build the building big enough so you can work with inside of it once it's finished. And we put in much larger equipment and faster and more efficient equipment. So now we can really turn out it gives us probably another 40% capacity in volume than we were just back in 2017. So continue to grow the business. Someone that comes in here and sitting in this chair in 5 years from now, if they have an opportunity and the family and the board of directors decides that's what we want to do and they can handle it, then they can have at it. But, as I say, my goal here is to run for 3 more years and help shepherd in the next group of leaders and be here as an advisor in the future. And say, we tried that before. It doesn't mean it's not going to work this time, but here's what we learned from that. Here's where you have to keep your eyes open.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you one last thing. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about transitioning, because you've mentioned that a couple of times. Sometimes when we're working with producers, they're like, well, I'm not planning on retiring because I don't know what else to do and I don't play golf. So you are, you and Debbie are, planning your transition now. What has made the thought of transitioning easier? Is it because you have hobbies outside? Is it because you've known you've done a good job and the business is in good shape? But talk to me a little bit about the preparation for transition and what you have done to make sure that your mindset is healthy to be able to let go of the reins and pass that to the next group of leaders.
I think the first step is to know who's going to take over for you. We're all going to be replaced. The Hall of Fame is full of people that were replaced, and we're going to be replaced someday. So you just get used to that. I think for me, it's bringing in people and working with them. I'm fortunate to have good people. I'm fortunate to have room for people in the building and find spots for them that they excel in, and that makes them valuable, and that brings me peace of mind. And as Debbie and I, we have a lot of outside interests. Most of them are traveling, just meeting people and relaxing, a little bit of golf, but a lot of traveling, and we enjoy that. Not that we're going to do that full time, but I think in the future it gives you peace of mind in knowing that there's beyond what we're doing right now. And I think that's a big part, saying what are we going to do. I would suggest that people that say, I'm not going to quit farming, I'm just going to keep going, that's okay. But really, who's going to be making the decisions? And someday you won't be there. And what's your legacy going to be? If you have a son or a daughter or a neighbor or a nephew, give them an opportunity to spread their wings, and you can step back and you go to the house a couple hours early, or let them take a few more trips around the field, because they will be doing it someday.
Yeah. Well, George, if our listeners wanted to get a hold of you or connect with you in some way, how would they do that?
Well, I'm George at cravecheese.com, and my phone number's on there, and send me an email. I'm not an advisor, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a priest or a lawyer, but I can, I appreciate giving people a few little tidbits. If they have a question, I don't mind answering them, because people have helped me along the way, directly, intentionally, and not intentionally. But I think that's the only way we learn, is by other people.
Yeah.
Or talk to people. So if people have any questions, they're welcome to get a hold of me at George at cravecheese.com. We have a nice website also at cravecheese.com, and a lot of videos. And we've been fortunate to get quite a bit of media attention, and the news, and had some TV shows about us, and some of those are online also.
Yeah. So what we'll do for everybody who's listening is all of George's contact information will be in the show notes, along with, their social media accounts. George's daughter does a very good job of documenting George's antics around the globe as they go from cheese show to cheese show. So, we'll make sure that everybody can get a hold of that very easily, and they can, at least, if nothing else, follow you on social media and see what the Crave Brothers are up to and what their next innovation is going to be.
Yeah, thanks. We are a family business, and we want to maintain that. Our family, our son Brian is at the cheese factory. He's a Wisconsin licensed cheesemaker. Our niece Beth and our daughter Roseanne's a senior at Madison right now, and we have hopes that she'll come back and help really foster and take the business into the future.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're going to be very interested in watching what she's going to be up to in the next few years. So Thank you so much, George. I appreciate your time very much. And for all of you listening, we'll talk to you again very soon on Ag Inspo.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to the Ag Inspo podcast with Ron Rabo and Rena Striegel. Find Ag Inspo on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and anywhere you find your favorite podcasts. For more information about today's guest or the resources referenced today, please see the show notes listed below. Join us next time when we will meet another inspirational leader who has taken those small steps to bring about really big change.